So this is my new cup. A friend of mine bought me a cup that said, "You can do amazing things." And I loved that cup. I only wanted to use that cup every day. And I was really sad that it broke. So I decided to get myself a new one. And it says, "It's just a phase." And I was telling you, Mussi, why I like it, because I feel like every day is a new day and everything is just a phase, right? Like if I'm feeling down or having a hard day, it's just that moment. The next moment could be something different. I never have to feel like stuck in any situation, because the next moment is coming and it's going to be different no matter what.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's nice to hold on to. For me, it helps me in the good moments to really appreciate them and be with them fully, because this is just a phase. So like, enjoy it while you have it, And then it helps me in the bad moments to be like, this is just a phase. Like, we'll get through it as best as we can. There's always another moment on its way. So
yeah. And sometimes like hard phases that I've gone through, it could be easy to feel like, I don't know, like stuck, or, why do I have to go through this? But actually it's made me a much more compassionate person. Like when someone else is feeling stuck or someone else is going through a hard time, because of my own experience of different things I've gone through, I feel like I can be like non-judgmental, super compassionate. And in my coaching, just, it helps me, whatever phases I go through, just how I get through it, how I deal with it, how I love myself through it, is how I can then help others. So it actually benefits. Anything we go through benefits us.
Yeah, it's so funny. A few things came to my head when you said that. I remember when I was actually like, was I in high school or just out of high school, but I was super young. And there was an even younger girl who like asked me to be her mentor and was like talking to me about different things. And it was so crazy how often she would talk to me about something that I literally just like experienced, processed, and overcame. Like was just like fully feeling like a new person around this situation. And then like she had that exact same thing. And I was able to like share my experience with her. And like, it was so cool that I like knew the answer, like not the answer. I don't know anyone else's answer, but like I knew a answer. Like I had something to relate to on that. And that was just fascinating. And it's interesting how life is like that. We hear what we need to hear. We say what we need to say. We meet people that we need to meet, all like so timely, so on purpose, even if it doesn't feel like that in the moment. But the other thing that I thought of as you were saying that is like the very bottom line foundation of Nurtured Heart. The question that we start with is intensity the enemy? And like intensity, when you think of intensity, there's a sort of that negative connotation of like, it's too much, I can't handle it, right? It's challenging, like we want to lessen it. But like that idea that like Howard says, like if you took people's intensity away, they wouldn't get up in the morning. So like the truth is that intensity is what makes amazing things happen. Intensity is what makes us be who we are. Intensity. Can we see intensity as the gift? And the funny thing is that I just literally got off of another Zoom group coaching where we talked about the toll taker, and we talked about this idea. That's one of the intentions of Nurtured Heart. We talked about this idea of like how we choose to see things, and how intensity could be like, could be the worst thing ever, that like if it doesn't go away, my life is over. But like, what if I chose to see it as the gift? That's like the essence of Nurtured Heart, is like the beauty that came out of the challenges, the beauty that came out of like, I think about like these big influencers online, or these TED Talk people who like are so inspiring, who like, and possibly changed my life like very many times, and changed so many people's lives. And like from their horrible lives, like from horrible things that they struggled with and overcame. And now look at the global change they're making, whether it's social, mental, like spiritual, whatever. Like they are making the world a better place through their intensity, through their challenge. Like their challenge is the greatest gift to us, at least. And I can't say this for other people, but I can say this for myself. I'm so grateful for my challenge. I feel like if I hadn't gone through all the things that I've gone through, I would never have Nurtured Heart to the level that I have it. Like being pushed to the limit forced me to see the world in a different way, because the way I was seeing it wasn't working. Like I couldn't be in denial that like how I thought. This actually walks us into the topic we talked about talking about. Hang on. Okay, so you can't tell, but we paused the recording. And so I'm a little bit not sure what I was just saying, but I think what I was saying is that I couldn't continue seeing things the way I was seeing them because it wasn't working for me. And so that forced me to find new ways of living. And the new ways I've found of living are so much infinitely greater and more healthy and more enriching and beautiful. And so I am so grateful for the journey I've been on, because this has led me to such great gifts of the qualities of my relationships and the qualities of my daily living. So before we go on to the topic that I mentioned, we're going to pause so that my sister could also talk.
Well, I just wanted to say that something that I think about when I hear, don't judge someone unless you're in their shoes. Even if you are in their shoes, how much more so when you're in someone else's shoes, you're not going to judge them because you're going to have compassion and love and empathy and understanding of what they're going through. So we really can't judge anyone else. And if we're in their shoes, then all the more love that we could have for them and their situation, because we know what it feels like.
Yeah, I feel like that's why support from people who have been in the same place as us is the most effective. Like, even if someone else has gone through something really hard, but it's not the exact same really hard thing you've been through, it's not as effective. It's not as validating because there's just a sense of like, oh my gosh, you get it. Yes, I get it, when you've been through the exact same thing, which is why getting support from people who have been through what you've been through is like vital. Like, anyone who's listening to this, I suggest it. Find someone or people who have been where you have been, because it is so powerful to know that you're not alone, and to get that kind of validation. Because yeah, how could you judge someone if you literally have been there and know exactly what they're talking about? And it's the most beautiful feeling to be received for that experience. And in that space of acceptance, for me at least, in that space of acceptance, it opens up space for hope, and it opens up space for being willing to maybe move a little forward, because I'm not defensive and protecting my right to struggle and needing to like convince people that like, no, I really am a victim, and no, I really do have issues, like, because I'm being seen for them and everyone's agreeing with me. So then I don't have to be fighting, so I can be open to learning. And so much growth has come out of that for me. Yeah. So, well, we were going to talk about the idea that, and this relates to what I was saying earlier about learning new ways. It's like, before my intensity, before my challenges, I thought I had everything worked out, and like everything was just supposed to be a certain way because that's the way it's supposed to be. And I always hear you saying this, Rivkie, like, just because it works doesn't make it right. And like, just because it's supposed to be that way, just because I was modeled relationships a certain way, or modeled life a certain way, or taught certain core values around productivity and purpose, doesn't make that be the only way or the right way, even. Definitely not for sure for me. And so, I don't know. I love how you talk about this topic. So what does that bring up for you?
Yeah, well, it's funny because ever since I was little, I was very passionate about, children and their rights and how we treat them. I read all the parenting books when I was like 10 or 11 on the shelf. And I just remember being in someone's house and the topic of discussion was, spanking. And, the father was just saying like, well, it's the only thing that works. And it was a discussion, and I remember saying like, well, just because it works, does that make it right? And, I mean, this example is extreme and nobody's going to do this, hopefully. But like, yeah, if you are toilet training your child and you crazy glue them to the seat, they will be toilet trained. They will go in the bathroom, in the toilet. But is that right? So, it is harder to think about like what can work that is also right. And also, it's not even necessarily, at the end of the day, if I know that I am doing my job as a parent, and I feel like one of my jobs as a parent, and of course we make mistakes, I make mistakes all the time, it's not about being perfect, but if I think that my job is that whatever I say, my kids have to listen right away, I feel like I will be feeling like a failure every day. If I feel like my job is to control my children and make them do exactly what I think they should do at all times, I will feel like a failure. But I remember speaking to a father who was telling me, my daughter is so disrespectful and I'm trying so hard and I'm spending, one night a week with her and she's just like really angry. And he was telling me all these beautiful things that he's doing to rebuild the relationship. And, I just thought it would be encouraging. So I told him, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, at the end of the day, when your job is to be a good father, whatever that means to you, what you think, how you can build the relationship and what you think is important to do in the relationship. And you're talking to therapists and you're trying different things with your daughter. Your job as a father is still going amazing because of the effort that you're putting in, regardless of your child's behavior, because parenting is so much more about our own behavior than our child's behavior. And of course, we want to, I remember when I was teaching, when I first walked into the classroom, that's how I learned a lot of what I know about children. And my question that I would ask myself is, why didn't this work? What can I do differently? Not, I will find something that will make them work right away and I will try to control them more. No, it's like, what can I do differently? And I remember I've shared this before, but like coming to the classroom, coming to the lunchroom for one of the first days of school and saying, a bunch of kids were standing on their chair, or maybe just like 2 or 3. And I was like, we don't stand on chairs. And all of a sudden, a bunch of kids stood up on their chair. And I'm like, okay, that didn't work. Why not? What could I do differently? Yeah, maybe it will work if I scare them. They were only like 3 or 4. Maybe it will work if I give out punishments. Maybe it will work if I start giving like candy to the kids who are sitting. But is that right? Do I feel like that's, what can I do? How can I motivate these kids in a way that's the right way that can work more effectively? And the next time I saw a lot of kids sitting and those same kids standing, and I said, I appreciate that you guys are sitting. And we had a conversation about why it's important to sit. And I gave a lot of acknowledgement to the kids that were sitting. And, those kids who were standing were like, I'm sitting too. I'm sitting too. And I was like, okay, something about that works. It doesn't mean it works every time. It doesn't mean that it, everything I do will always work, because I'm not a magician and I'm not God. But if I know at the end of the day that I was loving and I was calm, or even if I wasn't, that I did the best I can, or if I made a mistake, I apologize, regardless of the other person's behavior, I can feel good about myself if I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And I don't think it's good I don't want to, as a person, I don't want to lie. I don't want to yell. I don't want to get physical. I don't want to threaten. I don't want to punish. So if I'm not doing those things, then I can feel like a success.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I feel like Nurtured Heart has given me that ability to stand in alignment with my values, and still have and have a functional model to work off of in parenting, where I can feel secure in like what my next move is and like how I'm gonna move through these things, but always staying in integrity with my value system and what I believe in.
And
yeah,
I feel like if I'm not, sorry, no, I was just gonna say, like, and if I don't, if I say, I need you to come here, and I like pull my kid, I can say, oh, you know what, I'm really sorry. And it worked because they came, because it's time to go in the shower, and I pulled their hand to the shower. I can be like, you know what, I'm sorry. I really don't want to be pulling you. I need you to go in the shower. But just because it worked to get them to the shower doesn't mean that I want to be pulling my kids, So it's just a really important shift for me to remember that it's not about what's going to work right away. It's about, what would love do? And not what would love do like permissively, but like, how can I, it's a harder, more challenging thing to figure out. How can I help the behavior in a way that feels morally correct to me?
Yeah, that is literally the one thing that I struggled with most before Nurtured Heart, is this like strong belief I had in people and like belief in people's worth, and like wanting to give that to the kids I worked with, and to be like positive and supportive of them, who they are, no matter what, like unconditionally. And yet like balancing classroom decorum and how to have like a managing, like I couldn't just like have wildness and craziness all day in my classroom, it would not be safe for the kids. And so, but the thing is the only working models I had for me were things that weren't in alignment with what I believed in, but they worked for other teachers anyway. So it was like, wait, so like, am I wrong? There was like a lot of disillusionment, even like, was I wrong? Am I wrong? Like, is it not possible to be unconditionally loving? Like, maybe I'm wrong, or like, maybe like, I don't know, like, is the only way to have a classroom if like we're in a jungle and the kids are allowed to do whatever they want and like just climb trees like monkeys and like we just live out in like, is that the only way to have unconditional love if like there's zero, civilization? Like, how do you balance rules and responsibility and respect and like these things and like agendas? Like, there are agendas at school. There is a curriculum we need to follow. There are things we need to learn. Like, there is respect of the organization and like whatever values the organization is built on. Like, there is that. So how do you balance that with this like unconditional love? And like, that's what like really hit me with Nurtured Heart, is that the way the 3 stands work with the clarity and stand 1 and stand 2 all balancing together, like that gives me the framework to be able to fully be unconditionally accepting and unconditionally loving, rooting for the child all the time, and clear, and have boundaries, and not go against my own rules and beliefs and values. Like, so empowering.
And what I love about clarity is, for me, I really appreciate clarity in the stands, because once we're, not giving energy to negativity and giving lots of energy to positivity, clarity is really important, because, what I tell parents, like, we're not born knowing how to do this, right? And we are learning on the job, and it's okay to try again. And it's okay to try again and again and again. And the good thing is that there are so many resources out there for us today. There's so many different ways to have systems, to have, oh, that didn't work. Instead of saying like, oh, that didn't work, I'm a failure, that didn't work, what else can I try? Because there are so many things, and I'm so grateful every day especially when I had a hard day, that I wake up in the morning, if I could be grateful and say, I have another chance today. Because kids are so resilient, and they're so forgiving, and they're so willing and ready to just show up for a new day. And so for me, it's about letting go of like the guilt, or like the shame, or like, oh, you weren't good yesterday, so you didn't deserve to be different today. Something that I heard that I love is sometimes we may feel like we're like the calm me, or the loving me, or the positive me, or the grateful me is not really the real me. Because I know that I could be, not grateful and loud and negative, but actually that's the one that's not the real me. Even if I was that more of the time, the real me is empathetic and kind and loving. And how do I know that? Because it doesn't feel good when I yell. And it doesn't feel good. If it was my authentic self, it would feel good, right? Because when we act in our authentic self, it feels good. It feels good. It feels honoring. It feels like, oh, I'm alive. Like, I'm being who I truly am meant to be. And that's the beauty, that like every day we have a new chance to practice and clarity. Okay, what didn't go right? What did go right? Maybe my kids need an earlier bedtime. Maybe I need an earlier bedtime. Maybe certain foods I'm eating make me feel angry. That's what I learned about myself. I needed to change my whole diet in order to feel normal. Maybe my kids are hungry. Maybe I need to, for me, it's like, okay, if I plan an activity after school, the day, okay, even if I just take out coloring books and like, suggest that after dinner, it's like, okay, the day goes more calm. There's always ways, there are so many ways that we can have clarity and like try new ways and see, okay, that didn't work. What will work? And we don't have to keep trying the same thing over and over if it didn't work. And if it is working, but everyone's miserable, or I'm not feeling good, I can find a new way, even though that way works. If it doesn't feel good, I could find a way that feels better and more loving.
Yeah, 2 things popped out at me of what you said. First of all, I love about the clarity piece that you're bringing out, something about the Nurtured Heart that I love is that Nurtured Heart is not instead of other approaches and methods. It's the foundation that all other approaches can work with in a healthy way. It's like, I can gain from all parenting advice and almost all parenting advice and all, almost all approaches. out there and apply it within the 3 stands, and then it's right side up. And then it's building relationship and building inner wealth and connecting in a way that's aligned again with my values and who I am. So I just love that there's so much room for like everything that I've been doing, everything I believe in, everything, my religion, my status, like it all doesn't have to change in order for Nurtured Heart to work. Nurtured Heart is applied everywhere and in every way. So that was just one thing that struck me. And the other thing that I want to like pull out of what you said that's like struck me really deeply was this idea that you're saying about the true me is you know, I have a friend, there's a song in this little kid's tape that we grew up on that this little boy is feeling really bad about himself. And he sings the song, always late, always late, always late. Like he's always late. And
yeah, that tape is very old fashioned.
And she would come in, I mean, I love the music, so I can still listen to it 1,000 times, but she would come into class late or whatever, and she would sing that people would sing to her always late, like to her. We were in high school, whatever. And she would go, sometimes early. Like she would sing like sometimes early instead of always late. And like the fascinating thing about that is nobody's always late. They're sometimes early, but yet if somebody was like always early, but sometimes late, we wouldn't say that we would never be willing to say, oh, you're always on time. Like, or I would never be able to own that. I'm always on time. I would never be able to exaggerate for the positive because it's an exaggeration. I'm not always on time. We're always like second guessing our positives. Like, well, I'm not always calm. Like sometimes, like if someone gives me a compliment, I don't want to like take it unless I'm completely honest that like they're right. Because like sometimes I'm not like that. Like I'm almost always on time, but sometimes I'm late. That's super important to bring in the negativity when I'm talking the positive. And yet when it's the negative and I'm saying I'm always late, it's not super important for me to say, but sometimes I'm early and like bring in the truth about the goodness. It's only with the bad that we're allowed to exaggerate and speak bad about ourselves and others. But with the good, God forbid we should exaggerate. We have to be so honest and changing that paradigm around and being willing to, fine, if you don't want to exaggerate, don't exaggerate. But you don't have to bring in and highlight the negativity to make the good thing good. Like, no, you are on time almost all the time. You are an on-time person. And like, so what? You're late sometimes. And like, let's switch it around so that even if you're late almost all the time, we can focus on the positives and not allow it to be you're always late, but be like, no, you're late a lot of the time, but sometimes you're on time. So like focus on the good, like, but that wasn't even what I wanted to say. What I wanted to point out of what you're saying is that idea of like, that was so beautiful to me, how like, if it's my who I am is not my behavior, who I am is my values and what I stand for. And so if a behavior doesn't feel good to me, if anything, that doesn't reflect and define who I am. If anything, that reflects it and defines me as someone who has really high values, that I'm not okay with how I'm behaving. It shows that I actually have really big values, and who I am is someone who's, committed to certain beautiful truths. And the fact that I feel so good when I'm standing in alignment with that just reflects also that that's really who I am. So beautiful. And that's so different. So much of how the world talks is like, if you do it, then you are it. And like being willing to define myself by my values, not by my behavior, is like such an empowering gift. Wow.
Yeah. One of my kids a long time ago, one of my kids' teachers called me and they were like, your son didn't do his homework yesterday, or sent a note home or something like that. And no, I genuinely felt it was the first time I got that call. And I wasn't trying to be like rude or anything. I genuinely meant it. And I said, this is the first time I'm getting a phone call or note that my son didn't do his homework. Does that mean that every single other day he did his homework? They're like, yeah, I mean, I think so. This is the first time I've noticed. And I'm like, wow, I am so proud of him. He always does his homework. Only one time he didn't. He's so responsible. But I literally meant that. I'm like, I'm getting one phone call that he didn't do his homework. I've never gotten this phone call before. What a dedicated kid. I know for me, it's very hard for me to do assignments as an adult. It's like, even if I have to write out a paragraph, I just won't always do it, So, oh my gosh, he did his homework. Or like my son, when he was 2 years old and I picked him up from preschool, the teacher told me that he hit somebody. And I was like, 2 times. And I was like, thinking like, so you know, 500 times he must have used his words, because there's a lot of time in the day. What, 4 hours? He only hit 2 times. So it's not that I want my kid to hit, but what if that same teacher would come over to me and say, do you know that how many times your son used his words today? Even though I know it's a challenge, I know sometimes he could forget, but and tell me in front of my kid all the times that he used his words, that's just going to make his hitting less appealing. And saying in front of the child, I'm not judging the teacher, I'm trying to bring out a point, like, your kid hit 2 times today, like, that's not a lot for a 2-year-old. Like, and if it's only 2 times, he literally must have used a lot of strength to be able to use his words all the other times. And how good, I love the concept of teaching what we want to teach when the good behavior is happening, because what a good teaching moment it would be for the kid that hit 2 times to hear, oh, my teacher noticed the times that I used words. And my teacher went over to my mother and is talking about the times I used words. So tomorrow I'm going to want to use words even more because it's noticed.
Wow.
Right? Like I don't think they even know that those kind of things are noticed. It's just like, they don't even notice it. It's like, they just get to feel bad about the times that they hit. I don't think it's like even celebrated of like how hard it is to be a 2-year-old in a class where people are taking all the things that you want all the time, and you have to share, and everyone's in your space, and people are crying and bullying, and you get attention, but not all the attention. And these kids are amazing, you know?
I love that. I love that. I actually had a kid in my class who couldn't sit through circle time. And the interesting thing is that I didn't know Nurtured Heart in the beginning of this year, and then I learned Nurtured Heart. So it was almost like I changed styles very quickly. Like I was like, whoa, okay, I want to do things differently here. It was amazing to watch the kids kind of like drink it up. But anyway, this kid couldn't sit through circle time and would always like get into trouble during circle time. It was always the thing. And when I learned Nurtured Heart, I was almost like maybe the next day, even like I was like focusing on like, is he never sitting in circle time, or is he ever sitting in circle time? And I noticed that like he sat in circle time for like 2/3 of it. Like there were 2/3 that he was sitting and he was listening, he was singing, and he was whatever. And then just the last third was when, yeah, it was really bad, but like, so what? It was 2/3. So I took him to the office and I called his mother and on speakerphone, and I told her, she was like petrified. I'm also petrified when the school calls. We need to change this. Why are we scared when the school calls? We should be so excited.
Yeah, my kids call, they say everything's okay, everything's okay.
I know. We're always so scared. Like, anyway, I called this mom and I was like, yeah, everything's okay. And I was like, I just need to tell you that your son, he sat on his ex on the rug and I like named the parts of the circle time, right? From when we sang the welcome song, through the ABCs, through blah, 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 up until blank time, whatever the time was, right? Like, he was sitting in his space and he was singing and he was smiling and he wasn't touching his friends and he wasn't rolling in circles and he wasn't throwing anything and he wasn't all the way till then. He had so much self-control. He is so able to handle his body during circle time. I was so impressed. I just needed to call you. The kid was beaming. He didn't know what hit. And the mother was so happy. Cute. She doesn't know that there was 2/3, that was 1/3 of the time. That was awful. But it doesn't, like, why? Think about ourselves. Like when we do everything right and we're putting ourselves out there. Maybe we're sick, or maybe we're just going through something hard, or maybe it's just a regular day and we only have X amount of time. And like, we did so many great things, or we're pushing ourselves so hard. And then like, at the end of the day, the only thing that's recognized from our kids or our spouse or our boss or whoever is like, gosh, like I asked you to, why do I not have any clean socks? You know, like, when are you going to do the laundry? It's like, I did so much. Can't it be noticed and appreciated?
Well, it's so interesting because I feel like as adults, I just thought of this. I feel like as adults, you know, a lot of us are told like, oh, you know, stop being so hard on yourself. You know, like, let's say at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, you know, I raised my voice or I did this. They'll be like, people will tell me because they, you know, because they care about me. Stop being so hard on yourself. Why are you just think about all the good things you did? Of course, we are wired to think about the things we did wrong because that's what was noticed our whole lives. And now we have to rewire our brains to literally change that system to be like, what did I do right? But it's like, it's hard because when all that's what's noticed, you know, it's hard to change that.
Yep. It's really good stuff. About having this conversation. I love these conversations. I gain so much out of them.
Me too. And, you know, I sometimes, you know, think about like, oh, okay, well, because I'm a very authentic person, you know, so it's like, I'm teaching the Nurtured Heart and I don't always do the Nurtured Heart, or like, I'm teaching all these things and like, I'm not perfect, but that's what it's all about. And I get to show up and be authentic and say, you know what, that's how I can use this. Like I get so inspired talking about these things because then I get to use it in my own life. Yeah, I wasn't using Nurture Heart a second ago, but now I am. Yeah, yesterday I, went on my phone and wasn't present, but now I'm choosing to be present. And that's actually really hard to change patterns. And if I have a pattern that like when my kid is talking to me, I'm not present and I'm genuinely working towards being present, like it's so much easier to just stay how I am and not change. And that is the essence of the Nurture Heart. Like, and I'm doing it because I am working on myself to appreciate the good moments and to, acknowledge the good moments and to build myself up and not beat myself up. And so, who's perfect? I mean, no one. And that's the whole beauty of the approach. It's like, we're not teaching that this is how you be perfect. We're teaching that this is how we can acknowledge the goodness in ourselves and others, even when we're not perfect, because we never will be.
Yeah. So beautiful. So I guess with that, we will wish our audience a wonderful, I will not speak for you, Rivkie. I will wish the audience a wonderful day. And I'm glad you were able to join us here and watch our little chat. And I hope to do more of these in the future. And
yeah, me too. I feel so
thanks for being
energized
here. I know, right? And I will let Rivkie say her own ending. I will be the greatest.
I just feel so energized. And I think it's so important to talk about these things on a daily basis because, now when my kids come home from school, I'm going to be, or like now I'm going to make dinner when we end this, and sometimes I can be like, oh, what are you doing today? Making dinner, speaking to a client and like cleaning my house and doing laundry. The fact that I have a clean home and fresh dinner when my kids come home and folded laundry and helped somebody, like I'm actually like feeling so good about the fact that I'm going to make a healthy dinner for my family. Like it's literally just how you look at it. And I'm just feeling really energized. And it's reminding me how much I need to continue to talk about what makes me feel good, because sometimes I'm just like, oh, why don't I feel good? But yeah, if I take actions to feel good, like read something positive, talk about something positive, do something positive, think about the things I'm grateful for, it literally changes my whole day. So I hope that, I guess the way I want to end is that we all deserve to feel good and we all deserve to, not beat ourselves up and to appreciate the efforts that we're making. And even if we made mistakes in the past, and even if we made mistakes today, we still deserve to feel good about what we're doing right. And even if it's a small little thing, just like we could pick ourselves apart for the little not right thing, we could really appreciate the good. And like, we deserve that. You deserve that. I deserve that. We deserve to feel good, to give ourselves love, to give others love. And, why not? Like, if we could feel good, why not tap into that? So I just wanted to, I hope that everybody could find something good about themselves today and every day.